This is my spoiler-heavy review of Scream 7. The movie starts out on the Mocker home, which is now a B&B you can rent to have your own little Scream/stab experience. A cute little couple goes in to experience all the nostalgia and look at all the neat things on the wall that are memorabilia, I guess you could call, from those murders. Then Ghostface does the whole thing and calls them with the scary voice, and they have that whole interaction like always. But ultimately, Ghostface shows up in the place of an animatronic in a corner and goes after this couple and does get them pretty quick. Within the first 10 minutes of the movie, we are getting the first killings of the movie, and they're not something special to write home about. They're not anything that really stands out to me. They're brutal, but they're not inventive, they're not creative, and they're not up to par in my opinion. Then Ghostface does burn down the Mocker home and we get to see the title. From there we go right into meeting Sidney's new family, a husband named Mark that's the sheriff in town, and a daughter named Tatum that is a teenager in high school. Ultimately, we get a lot of nostalgia scenes in this movie. We get right up front the whole scene that seems like Billy and Sidney with Tatum and her boyfriend, only this time Sidney busts her like her dad didn't get to do for Billy. You learn that Tatum, her daughter, hasn't been able to have any kind of a conversation with Sidney about the things that have happened. From there, the next important scene is of Tatum going to a school play rehearsal in which Sidney then receives a FaceTime phone call from none other than Stu Macher himself that he is outside of this theater that her daughter is in, and he is going to go and take care of her. And there's nothing Sidney can do. Sidney rushes to her safe, gets her pew-pew, calls her husband the sheriff, and hauls ass over to the theater. During this time, though, Ghostface does claim some casualties. There is a girl on stage running her lines and practicing with the high wire act that gets stuck in the air because the one working the chords in the back gets the ultimate and then she gets trapped in the air while swinging, and Ghostface does his thing to her in the air. To me, this is one of the only really original killings in this movie that stands out. From there, there's a scuffle of Ghostface going after Tatum ultimately, and Sidney does show up in time to save her. Then there's a scuffle between Sidney and Ghostface in which it looks like Ghostface might get the better of her, and suddenly, bam! What happens? He's hit by a friggin' van. Who's driving that van? None other than the only character that's been in all 7 Scream movies, Gale friggin' Weathers. And who does she have with her? None other than Chad and Mindy from Scream 5 and 6. Apparently they are her camera people and social media team. Then they waste no time unmasking this Ghostface. And who is it? None other than nobody knows. Nobody knows this guy. He ends up being just some crazy guy that escaped from an insane asylum that apparently Stu Macher talked into helping him with his little murder plot. And so in an attempt to get ahead of this thing, Sidney decides to give Gale the interview that she's always wanted with her on live TV, so maybe Ghostface would call in and they could get him to come for them rather than harm anyone else. While Sidney goes to have this interview with Gale, Tatum is supposed to be staying at home. She does sneak out and go with her boyfriend, Mandy, Chad, and some other characters to a bar where they're all discussing the things that happen in all the other stab movies and how everyone's a suspect. Ultimately, there is a call from Stu to Sidney while she's at the studio with Gale, and he lets her know that her daughter's not at home safe and sound like she thinks. Instead, she's at this bar. He lets her see that he's right outside that bar too. During the same timing, you also see that Mark has a scuffle with a Ghostface in a garage and is ultimately wrapped up in some plastic and done away with. So, the bar is not too far from the studio where Sidney and Gale are doing the interview. Sidney decides to just hoof it right to that bar as fast as she can. During that time, though, Ghostface gets into the bar and does some serious damage. He stabs Mindy and Chad again because they've been stabbed in every movie they're in. And ultimately, one of the other really crazy creative kills in the series is in this moment because Ghostface takes a kid and stabs him on top of a bar tap, opens the bar tap, and out of the kid's mouth comes a gushing, rushing flow of beer. As this is all happening, Tatum tries to escape, gets out in the street, and her boyfriend then gets the old axe as well. So then Sidney calls her back, letting her know she's not going to make it in time at all, and tries to convince her of how to handle this. Well, she doesn't do what Sidney says and shoot him in the head and ultimately it's her undoing as she is then caught by two ghost faces. Ghostface then gives Sidney the call and the ultimatum to come wherever he is, or she dies, of course. So Sidney goes. Then we get the traditional third act reveal of these Scream movies where the bad guy tells everything for some reason. You're displayed with Mark, Sidney's husband, wrapped up in the plastic, supposedly unalive. And during the entire discussion from the Ghostface killers as they unmask themselves, you do get to see that Mark may be alive. I cannot state anymore that this is the absolute most garbage reveal of who the killer actually is in any of these movies, unfortunately. You find out that the killer is none other than Tatum's boyfriend's mother, who is Sidney's good friend and neighbor. And the other one that's with her, the other ghost face, is just some dude you've never seen before in any of the movies or anything else that apparently was in the loony bin with the guy from the first part of the movie and convinced him to come and help them. And he also has a background in AI, and that's how they all have these people showing up on FaceTime that are supposedly dead. Super duper friggin' lame, right? Well, during all this exposition from the bad guys, you get to see that Mark is alive, and he has been cutting the restraints of his daughter the whole time with a knife. She gets freed, and as soon as she jumps up, Sidney blasts the dude in the head with one shot, and the guy, Ghostface, is done. Ultimately, all you get at the end is the fight between Neve Campbell and Anna Camp, the female Ghostface, and you end up having a scene where Tatum blasts her in the stomach a few times with a pistol and then hesitates to do the again. So what happens? She disappears. They then run into the garage and have a whole scuffle in there, and there's a big fight and a culmination in ultimately Sidney and her daughter unloading both of their pistols on her head enough that she no longer has a face or skull. It was a pretty sweet ultimately, but that's pretty much it. That's the quick gist of the movie I can give to you. What ends up happening is the twins don't die again from their stab wounds because they're apparently impervious to stab wounds and somehow can still be stabbed in the same night and work a camera and be on camera, which is miraculous stuff. As well as Sidney's husband Mark now being what seems to be the new Dewey, who is definitely going to have some nerve damage from all the stabbings he received. Ultimately, the movie is watchable. That's about all I can say for it. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10, which is not great. I do not like to give low scores on movies, but this just deserved it. And Rotten Tomatoes agrees with me. This has a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes because most of us felt like we were ripped off with the whole AI Stu and AI other characters. It was unnecessary and just really cheap, in my opinion, to play off something like that without any more of a payoff than a guy that really works with AI being somehow involved. The movie does have one little factoid going for it, though. This is the most profitable Scream movie ever made, with $200 million profit margins. Ultimately, I think the firing of Melissa Barrera and the subsequent exit of Jenna Ortega really did take a number on this franchise. They weren't missed at all in this movie, and it was almost like their movies were unnecessary to even exist, besides the twins existing in Scream 7 for just that reason alone, it seems like. But this is just my take on it, and this is just how I saw it. If you saw it different, let me know in the comments. I'm MC Smithers. I like to review everything that I watch just because I want to know what you think about it too. Please like and follow for more, and I hope to see you next time.